Welcome to 101 on God 101. Our guests today are the director and the host of the new documentary, The Lord's Prayer. Brad, Joel, hello and welcome.
Hey,
Hey, Julie.
great to be here, Julie. Thank you.
To put together a documentary on the Lord's Prayer, I don't even know how you go about this, but how did it come to be a project, Joel?
Well, doing this professionally as a day job and telling stories, we see a lot of different ideas and concepts. Everyone's always trying to either find something in history, a book, a story, and then try to imagine it in a film format. And in the unscripted space, that's you always end up going back into historical, contextual, interesting stories. And so when Brad brought this one to us, we were like, oh man, we had never seen the Lord's Prayer or even really looking at the Bible in full context before. I know that that's a real trendy thing now. But when Brad and his team brought this to us years ago, about 6 years ago, context, or the idea of context, was certainly new to me. And I didn't understand really what it's like to actually look at the 66 books of the Bible within their true historical, geographical, language, cultural context. And we knew at that moment, man, this is something that has to be made. This is a story that will be interesting to everyone, irrespective of your relationship with the Bible. Everyone's been touched by it. Those words have influenced all of culture, all of modern society for the last 2,000 years, specifically since Jesus walked the earth. And so it was that excitement that said, hey, we have to do this.
Brad, what was your hope in putting this project together?
Yeah, initially we were wanting people to be able to experience the Holy Lands, knowing that 99.9% of people will actually never go there. And that's been a huge part of my own story. I have a business degree, did several years in sports business world, and then ended up going to seminary, getting a master's of divinity, and then realizing, there's so much more that I wanted to learn. And I moved to Jerusalem, lived in Israel, studied to the other Middle Eastern countries, and just fell in love with the history, geography, all the cultural backgrounds, and started leading biblical study trips in 2010. And hands down, it's the most significant thing that I've ever been a part of. And so when we started putting together the idea for this film, we said, how can we bring, in the most immersive, cinematic way possible, the experiences that I get to take people on? How do we bring those to the world and bring them to people who are never going to be able to set foot, in the Bible lands? And that was really kind of the impetus behind wanting to do a project of this scale and magnitude, and wanting to do it with the highest excellence and quality for people to be able to experience for years to come.
Beautiful. What an opportunity. Joel, so how did you go about accomplishing this? Where do you start? Where do you end?
So originally, Brad's concept was a unscripted episodic TV show, and it still is, and that's coming. But what happened was uh, the project was so ambitious. I mean, certainly from a theology perspective, and certainly from the content perspective, incredibly ambitious. And then as we flushed out the first season of the show, and it was all in the Lord's Prayer, and taking this thing that Jesus says in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, that kind of, at least for me, didn't feel like it was that relevant. It's kind of this crusty old thing that you recite in older traditions and liturgy, and like, maybe grandpa says it at Thanksgiving or something, but like it wasn't a living, breathing, it felt like, and it is all those things, but my experience with it, and I think many of our audience experience with it, is that it's just more passive. And here's this like incredible thing that Jesus gives at the center of his greatest sermon ever. And Brad was like, hey, we've got a thesis that unpacks each movement of the Lord's Prayer. So our Father in the heavens, like each movement. And that turned into 7 episodes of a documentary series. So that's a huge project. I mean, that is just the logistics, the budget, getting into all the locations in which they actually walked, and those things were actually taught and affected, and all the different parallels to the Old Testament that Brad had. I mean, just on the whiteboard, it was an insane logistical challenge. And then you have trying to get scholars all to those locations. And this is coming out of the pandemic. You remember years of what travel was like and borders being opened and closed, and then into all of the conflict that's been happening in the Middle East over the last couple of years. So this thing is just nearly impossible. So we start on this journey. We're years into it. It's all crowdfunded by families and small foundations and people that want to see this thing made. There's not some massive studio financing this thing. And so we're just kind of chipping away at this. Mark Burnett, the legendary TV producer, ends up seeing the pilot episode and calls Brad and is like, "Hey man, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, how do I help? How can I get involved?" And so it was his idea to take the 7-episode series and turn it into a feature documentary. The thought and the strategy, which was brilliant, being like, you have a ton here. This is so much to try to wrangle content wise, and it's so deep and rich. What if you kind of gave a toe into the pool by just doing an 83 minute feature length doc where you kind of go through the broad strokes and you get people reinvigorated, excited, passionate about the Lord's Prayer, and you kind of tease, hey, there's so much more behind each one of these movements. And so that's how this thing came to be. We just released the film a couple weeks ago, so that is available and it's streaming now. And then coming in Q1 of next year will be the full series. And so the film is kind of the entry, and then you would go to the series to go even deeper.
Okay, where do people stream and watch the Lord's Prayer documentary?
So it's exclusively available on Angel right now on their platform. And so if you want to watch it today, you can do that at Angel. And then the series will be available on Angel first as well around Easter of 26. And then from there, it'll start going out. But if you want to watch it now and check it out, it's Angel. Angel's got it first.
And the series, is that The Sacred Thread?
The series is called The Sacred Thread. Brad, do you want to talk a little bit about just that concept and how the Lord's Prayer is only season 1?
Yeah, and that's kind of been the goal, is that we would be able to do a number of seasons. So, Julie, as you mentioned, The Sacred Thread is kind of like the franchise title, with season 1 being on the Lord's Prayer. And then the goal is to be able to do 7 seasons of The Sacred Thread, with the first season being the Lord's Prayer, and then unpacking other facets of the biblical stories as well.
Brad, since this project was first placed on your heart, and now that you have the Lord's Prayer coming out, did it turn out the way you intended and had hoped?
That's a great question. You normally dream about something being done, and it's usually better than what the outcome actually is. In this case, it's the reverse. What Joel and his team was able to do, it just far exceeded our greatest expectations and hopes. And that was kind of part of the process, is that as my team and I started writing the Sacred Thread, and specifically the Lord's Prayer seasons content, which is initially how we got connected with Joel and his team at Evolve Studios, we weren't necessarily looking for a production partner just to fulfill our vision. We came with a posture of looking for a partner where we're saying, we're going to bring our best, you bring your best, and together let's build something that neither of us could build on our own. And that was just where the depth and richness of the film and the television series just went to a whole new level, because our teams were able to collaborate. We were in person, we were working together. And the initial thing that was kind of almost like a downsize was this project took a long time. It was 6 years of work, but it was allowing us to go deeper with the content, to be more thoughtful on the visual representation, because we're not only on location, we're also meeting with scholars. There's a huge visual component to visual illustrations. Just stunning work that allows people to engage this prayer in a way that will feel as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. And really, our hope in all of this is that 100 million people would live out the Lord's Prayer every day as a result of watching the film, of watching the television series. And actually, in addition to releasing the film, we dropped a book called Bringing Heaven Here, which is on all the personal implications of the Lord's Prayer that you can't tackle in a film or a television series. It's in a book. And actually, all of that can be found at thelordsprayer.com. So that's kind of the central hub for the film, the television series, and the book. So in order to get to Angel, you can just go right to thelordsprayer.com, or you can go directly to Angel platform to get the film. But yeah, just this has kind of been the beauty of the project, is an incredibly talented team coming together and just striving to create a very compelling film for people to engage.
And what feedback are you hearing from people?
It's been awesome. I mean, from all walks of life. And I think that's the thing that we were really hoping for, is that it wouldn't just be for just one demographic or one age group. The beauty about context is that you're filling in the gaps for all the things that the writers of the Bible assumed their audience knew and therefore didn't include. And that's what we're doing with the original context. And so you can take somebody who's been reading the Bible for 50 years and they're like, I never knew that was there. Or you actually took me to the location. Like, that's what that looks like. And in the same token, you can put this in front of people who are, have stepped away from faith, or they would say that they're atheist or agnostic. And it just gives them the ability to really wrestle with, oh, that makes a ton of sense. Maybe I should revisit, what I'm actually hearing. And then probably the biggest feedback we've been getting is from teenagers who are just seeing the locations, the visuals, the illustrations, the teaching content, and going, oh, that's how we need to be learning the Bible. So it's just been really overwhelming in the most positive sense of the word since this released a few weeks ago.
Joel, anything you want to add?
I would say, there's this old saying, I think Spielberg said it, that every film that's made is a miracle, or it's a miracle that any film ever gets made.
Yeah.
And that was certainly true of this film. But this film also had legitimate, all sorts of miracles, like real miracles in the making of. One of my favorite things about this, and I have done a lot of world travel, I've done a lot of international filming, but we got our cameras into some locations that had never seen a film camera before. The reason being is the night before we started our phase 2 Israel filming in Jerusalem, Iran sent hundreds of drones and missiles over. And you remember this, and this was all over the news. And what happened from that is that there was no tourism, no one was traveling, everyone was locked down. And we were in these sites with complete empty, like nobody in there. And so if you've been to the Holy Sepulchre, all you see is just people's heads. It's jam-packed all the time. And we're there, and it's wide open. There's not another soul outside of the ones that work there. And they're like, hey, you want to film in the tomb of Jesus? Come right in. We normally don't let this, but like, come on in. Yeah,
I mean, that's God's hand, just kind of.
It was.
Yeah. So we've got countless stories like that. And so just as a storyteller, it was, just what a blessing and a gift to just see things that shouldn't happen, literal miracles just happening. We started to get used to it. We're like, hey, it brought our faith like to a whole nother level. It was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Angel is where it's at. To thank you for making the Lord's Prayer come to life with the documentary film, The Lord's Prayer. And people can also stream The Sacred Thread at Angel, and then go to thelordsprayer.com for the book, Bringing Heaven to Earth.
Here. Yeah, Bringing Heaven Here. Yep.
Here.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you. God bless you, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Julie. Really appreciate it.